If the world is manifesting itself to you as nothing but thorns and impediments, with no positive impulse, let's say, or calling to move forward, there is something wrong with your aim. The word sin, by the way, it's an archery term, at least from the Greek, although 3 languages converged on the same derivation. The Greek word for sin is hamartia, and it's an archery term. It means to miss the target. And so that's a good thing to know, right? I mean, if we're going to investigate the structure of the stories that guide us, it's useful to understand the most fundamental stories we have. It's clearly the case that the most fundamental stories we have, the stories out of which our culture emerged, are the stories of the Judeo-Christian tradition. And those are encapsulated most fundamentally in the biblical stories. And there's an emphasis in the biblical stories on sin, let's say, as a negative mode of being. And sin is characterized as failure to hit the target. It's an archery term. Well, how can you fail to hit the target? Well, there's lots of ways you can fail to specify the target. That's what happens when people have a fragmented story. They don't have their act together. Things have fallen apart. They've wandered off the pathway. They're no longer on the straight and narrow path. They've wandered into perdition. They're in the outer darkness where there's gnashing of teeth. That's all. They're in the desert that the Israelites encounter after they leave the tyranny. They're in the wasteland. They're consumed by chaos. The flood has come. That's all a consequence of failure of vision, failure of aim. A landscape that's bereft of structure, a place of anxiety and hopelessness, because that's actually what happens to you neurologically, neuropsychologically. When you're aimless, you are overwhelmed with anxiety because there's too bloody many choices, and you have no hope because hope is experienced in relationship to a goal. So you need a goal. You need to structure your aim. This is not optional. You know, John, when he introduced me, made reference to a study in the UK that said that 85% thereabouts of inhabitants of the UK felt their life was meaningless.